Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is part 4 of the Salat series, centered around the concept of Salat and its relation with Zakat. In part 1 of this series, we explained the intent of the series, the tools and analysis approach used for the study. In part 2, we went over the traditional understanding of Salat and Zakat. Based on our observations of Ruku in Quran, we noted that the probable connotations for Ruku are accepting one's weakness or error, humbling oneself to authority, changing state, course, and direction towards Allah. In part 3, we made observations in Quran around Zakat. We noted that the probable connotation for Zakat are reaching full potential, nurturing purification, increasing in knowledge and wisdom. Please note that we are building on these observations and concepts as we proceed in this series. Please watch this series in sequence for a better understanding. This series is a study of some key concepts, namely Salat, Zakat, Ruku, and Sujud. Today we will primarily look at the concept of Salat in Quran. We will start with a few investigation points to keep in mind as we go through this part and the whole series. In Quran, what is the purpose or essence of Salat? What is the relationship of Salat and Zakat? Is Salat prescribed as a physical ritual movement? Is it a 5-time daily practice with the preparation step of wudu? Please note that we may not have concrete answers to all these questions today. Our understanding will evolve as we go through the whole series. We will build upon observations to arrive at possible meanings and connotations. We will primarily focus on the first two questions today. We will start our analysis with two ayahs that we looked at in part 2 and 3 of this series. In part 2, we noted that the sequence of traditional Salat, Zakat, Ruku doesn't make sense. However, we observed the use of circumstantial particle in 555, indicating that Salat and Zakat happen while in the state of Ruku. The phrase Aqimus Salah wa Atu Zakah occurs 21 times in the Quran, so there is a very strong connection between Salat and Zakat. The traditional translation for this phrase is attend your ritual prayers and give the mandatory charity. However, in part 3, we noted the probable connotations for Zakat as reaching full potential. Please note that Aqimus Salah wa Atu Zakah are commands to a group of people, that is, second person plural. Let's revise the purification process for Yahya alayhi salam in Surah 19. He is given the kitab, scripture or knowledge, the hukm, wisdom or discernment, nurturing towards purification so he can reach his full potential. He was devout, preserving, safeguarding. Quran 2:2. This is the book in which there is no doubt, guidance for those who preserve, safeguard. Lexicons also mention zakat as a plant reaching its full potential in bearing fruits. Please note that the process to take a seed all the way to a mature plant requires nurturing, feeding, pruning, and protection or preservation. In 62.2, we note the purification process, role, and duties assigned to a messenger. Allah sent a messenger among themselves, Yatlu alayhim ayatihi, reciting his ayat, revelations upon them, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and purifying them, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ, and teaching them the scripture and wisdom, although they were in obvious error before that. So then Allah repeatedly commands a group of people, Aqimus Salah wa Atu Zakah, establish, maintain the Salat, and reach, attain the Zakat. It seems like Salat is the process or medium. Zakat is the goal or objective. For the ingredient list of Salat, we have noted following the ayat, Yatlu alayhim ayatihi. We have also added ilm, kitab, and hikmah as related concepts. We are to follow Millat Ibrahim, Quran 87:15. وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. He was not an associator. إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجَسٌ. Associators are polluted, but Ibrahim alayhi salam was zakat. It was him who supplicated to Allah. Quran 2:129. Raise up among them a messenger who will recite to them your ayat, revelations, and teach them the book and wisdom, and purify them. Allah accepts his supplication, and we note this in several ayahs across Quran. Allah has blessed the believers as He raised among themselves a messenger who recites to them His ayat and purifies them, and teaching them the scripture and wisdom. And where is this hikmah? Quran 36:2. Wal Quranil Hakim. An oath by the wise Quran. 87:14. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Successful is he who purifies the desired goal. 87:15. وَذَكَرَ اسْمَ رَبِّهِ فَصَلَّى. And remembers the name of his Lord and does salat, the process. أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. We have added zikr and ism of our Rabb to the ingredients list of salat. Let's look at the opportunity of salat offered to Fir'aun through Musa alayhi salam. 79:18. Do you care to be cleansed, purified, the desired goal of zakat? And I will guide you to your Lord reverent, the state of ruku. He showed him the greatest ayat, the attempted salat process. And what was the result? But he denied and defied, then turned his back. So no ruku and no sujood. Then he said, I am your Lord the Most High. So he committed shirk, which means no zakat. Aqimus salah wa atuz zakah. And that takes us to the ultimate zakat, because no matter how much we try to cleanse ourselves, it will not be enough. Allah will purify us with the ultimate salat. These two similar ayahs fill us with fear and hope. The Quran tells us about criminals and what happens to them on Yawm al-Qiyamah. وَلَا يُكَلِّمُهُمُ اللَّهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And Allah will not speak to them on the day of establishment. وَلَا يُزَكِّيهِمْ. Nor will He purify them. Why? Because they hid, concealed what Allah revealed in the book for a small prophet. They disregarded the covenant, oath, trust of Allah. May we receive our Rabb's rahmah, the ultimate salat and zakat. Aqimus salah, establish the salat. Yukallimuhumullahu yawm al-qiyamah, the speech of Allah on the day of establishment. From these ayahs we have noted the kalam, speech of Allah, as an ingredient of salat. Salat is correlated with zikr, remembrance or mention of Allah. Allah tells Musa alayhi salam, وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي, and establish the salat for my remembrance. In 24:37 and 591, zikr of Allah and salat are mentioned together. From these ayahs, we have noted the zikr of Allah as an ingredient of salat. The zikr is present in the Quran. 38:1. Wal Quran is zikr, an oath by the Quran, possessor of zikr, remembrance. 15:1. Tilka ayatul kitab wa Qur'anim mubin, a clarifying Quran, and then later, surely we revealed the zikr, remembrance, and we will surely preserve it. Inna nahnu nazzalna zikr wa inna lahu lahafizun. Salat is correlated with going from darkness to nur, light. The phrase minaz zulumat ila nur, from darkness to light, occurs 7 times in Quran, and it is done via ayat, kitab, and salat. 65:11. A messenger who recites to you God's clear revelations to bring those who believe and do reforms or repairs from darkness into light. 14:1. A scripture that we reveal to you that you may bring humanity from darkness into light. Salat is a bi-directional process. In Surah 33, O believers who are at peace, remember Allah with frequent remembrance and glorify Him morning and evening. هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته. It is He who does salat over you, as do His malaika. مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ, to bring you from darkness into the light. We establish the Salat so we can receive Salat from Allah and His Malaika, bi-directional process. In Surah 2, we send to you a messenger from among you who recites our revelations to you and purifies you. فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ, so remember me and I will remember you. A two-way process. In the very next ayah, O believers, seek help through perseverance and salat. The kitab is called the light in many places in Quran, 4:174, and we send down to you a clarifying light, Nuram Mubina. So we keep collecting and connecting the dots. 29:45, recite or follow what is revealed to you of the scripture book, وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةِ, and establish the salat. Then we see an objective of salat. The salat prevents from fahsha and munkar. The traditional interpretation of these two terms is indecencies and evil. We are not focusing on the times of salat today, but the following ayat shows us that salat is through the book, that is Quran. 1778. أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل وقرآن الفجر. Establish the salat at the decline of the sun until the darkness of the night and the Quran at dawn. We see two times here, dusk and dawn. The dawn is called Quran al-Fajr instead of Salat al-Fajr. In 29:45, we see mention of two Salat by name, Salat al-Isha and Salat al-Fajr. So we can see that Quran is the main ingredient of Salat. In part 2, we had observed that rejectors are invited to ruku, but they don't do ruku, acceptance and humility. In part 3, we had observed that the polluted associators are invited to zakat, but they don't attain zakat, purification. We find a similar theme with salat, Quran 5:57. The believers are commanded to not take the disbelievers as their guardians, allies, or masters. When they, the disbelievers, are invited towards salat, they make a mockery of it, huzuwan, because they do not comprehend or understand it, la yaqilun. So we make observations. Huzuwan, mocking, is an opposing concept to aqal, comprehension. Why? Because those who mock do not comprehend. So that implies that salat is an aligned concept to aql, comprehension. However, we are faced with another question. Let's suppose for a minute that salat is a mandatory ritual 5 times a day for an adult Muslim. Why is a disbeliever, hider of the truth, being asked to do a physical ritual? Is he mocking the physical movements? Is he not comprehending, understanding a simple ritual? Let's look into the Quran for what the disbelievers mock and ridicule. The word huzuwan appears at several places in Quran, especially around the ayat of Allah. We will note a few of them. 18:106. وَاتَّخَذُوا آيَاتِي وَرُسُلِي هُزُوًا. They're taking my revelations and my messengers in mockery. 2:31. Do not take God's revelations as mockery. Similarly, the word laiban, 21:2. No fresh reminder comes to them from their Lord, but they listen to it playing around. So the disbelievers mock the ayat, the revelations, messenger, and message. They are not mocking a physical movement. Let's do some root analysis and correlations with other roots that look and sound similar. The traditional meanings of salat in Quran are prayer, supplication, blessings, and even synagogues. We will put the traditional meanings to the side for now. On the right we have talawa, from yatlu alayhim ayatihi, recite to them the ayat. Talawa means follow, walk behind, and also read, as you are following the written scripture. The root for salat is salah. It means to follow closely, which implies going in the same direction on the same path. At the bottom we have a similar root salaha, which comes from another repeating phrase in Quran, Allazina amanu wa amilus salihat. Those who believe are at peace and do works of reform. So salaha means make correction, make amends, reconcile, make peace, join people, reform and repair. On the left, we have the root salaya, sali, which means to join, commit, or submit something to fire. Which is interesting because in salawa, we are joining, committing, submitting to ayat. Both have a cleansing effect, as salat leads to zakat, purification, and salaya, fire, heat, is used to sterilize contaminants. So it is our choice. We either do salat to purify or we are submitted salaya for sterilization in the end. The last root is vasal, which carries the meaning of hold closely, connect, reach, conjoin without any gap. So what's the common theme here? Join or connect, follow closely, commit to the same path, reform and correct, so that we can atus zakah, attain purification and reach full potential. In Surah 75, Quran mentions the behavior of criminals. فَلَا صَدَّقَ وَلَا صَلَّى. He neither affirmed, accepted, nor did salat. وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. Instead, he rejected and turned away, desisted, abstained. So we make observations. Sadaqa, affirming, accepting, is aligned with Salla, doing salat. Kazaba, rejecting, is aligned with Tawalla, turning away. We also know from part 2 that Raka'ah is opposing Kazaba, which aligns Raka'ah with Sadaqa and Salla. This makes sense because one has to be in the state of ruku to do salat, changing direction towards Allah. So Salla is an opposing concept to Tawalla, turning away or abstaining. The word Tawalla is used in many places in the Quran. The following ayat give a clear clue. 591. In fact, Satan wants to prevent, turn you away from the zikr of Allah, from Salat. The very next ayah, obey Allah and obey the Messenger. فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ. Then if you turn away, know that the only duty of our messenger is clarifying communication. Balaghul Mubin. Let's make a few observations. Turning away from zikr and salat is parallel to turning away from the Balaghul Mubin. Earlier in this surah, 515, calls the clarifying book Kitabun Mubin a nur from Allah. That is the clarifying communication. Now the traditionalist uses the Ati'ur Rasul to point us towards books other than the Quran. But we should let the Rasul tell us what following the Rasul means. Let's remind ourselves that Salawa means to follow closely on the same path and in the same direction, joining and committing to the path. In Surah Furqan, a wrongdoer sees his painful punishment at the end. He is lamenting and says, if only I had taken the path with the messenger, ma'ar rasul sabila. Oh, woe to me! I wish I never took so and so for a friend, advisor. لقد أدلني عن الذكر. He led me astray, turned me away from the zikr after it had come to me. So what is this sabil, the path to be joined with the Rasul upon? The Rasul answers himself. وقال الرسول يا ربي إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. And the messenger will say, my Lord, my people have abandoned this Quran. So join, commit and follow the Rasul on the same path he is upon, the Quran. He recites, follows upon you the ayat of Allah to attain purification and full potential. Let's do a thought experiment. There is a messenger who is receiving ayat revelation in stages. His responsibility is to broadcast it to people repeatedly. Let's assume there is no technology. There are no printing presses to mass copy the revelation. There are no chat rooms, Discord servers, social media, or video conferencing. It looks like he will have to do it in person. He may initially reach out to his close relatives, but more people need to hear the message. There is also resistance and ridicule from certain parts of society. So, what can the messenger do? Maybe he can call people to gather around him so he can share what he has received. But people have their daily affairs and livelihood. They have to tend to their orchards, cattle, and trade. So the messenger is directed to hold two sessions. The people will come when the day begins, a morning session, and when the day ends, an evening session, the two ends of the day. We will not be discussing the timing and frequency of Salat today. However, please note that the Quran specifies only two Salat times by name, Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Isha. Let's summarize our observations. Salat is a bidirectional connection or communication with Allah through His ayat, revelation, signs, and kalam, speech. The essential ingredients of Salat is the Quran. The Quran includes zikr, remembrance, ilm, knowledge, hikmah, discernment, and nur, light. The sabil of the Rasul is the Quran. Follow Allah, follow Rasul, follow Quran. We have not covered a lot of ayat on Salat, and we still have a lot of questions, but we will get to them after we make observations on sujood. This is a long journey, and we are committed to it. Please note that the presentations in this series are just my observations in the Quran. Anything good in here is from our Rabb. Any mistakes here are mine. Thank you for listening. Salamun alaikum.